There's a thing called victim blaming. I guess it's the way you say it, blaming the victim. For instance, if a young girl gets raped and people say, well, if she hadn't have been here with these kind of people, or she hadn't dressed this way, or she didn't act flirtatious or whatever, none of that matters. Maybe she could have changed that stuff, but it still does not, she's still not responsible for being raped. So it's absurd to even think or talk like that. Let's see how that plays into today's lesson. I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian. It's a project about learning what it means to have a relationship with God and how to live that out in practical, everyday terms. So in thinking about this victim blaming, I take you to Genesis chapter 6 and starting in verse 5 here. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Verse 9, Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. The question becomes then, whose fault? And there's a reason why I'm asking this question, because I hear good people with good intentions basically blaming the good of society for not doing more about the evil. And that's why things are the way they are. If we'd have just stood up, if we'd have just said something, if we have, whatever the case may be, you understand that some of you may think that way. And I get it to a degree. You have Peter in 2 Peter referring to Noah as a herald of righteousness. So he spoke up. He tried. He was only able to get 7 other people on that boat, on that ark, to be saved from this destruction by God. And do we look at him and say, well, if Noah had done more people would have been on that ark. Maybe it wouldn't have been so evil if more people had stood up. You do that when you go to Acts chapter 8 and you read about Saul ravaging the church. In verse 1, Saul approved of his execution. That's Stephen in verse 7. There arose on that day a great persecution against the church in Jerusalem. They were all scattered throughout the regions of Judea. Now, scattered, what do you mean? Do you mean, why didn't they stay and fight? Why didn't they stand up to it? Well, if you had done that too, you understand that the church scattered, and the results of that were the gospel spread, had they stood up and fought and so forth. So I'm not saying we shouldn't take a stand. I'm not saying we shouldn't speak up, but I am saying that we need to be very careful about blaming the ills of society on those who are good. There are people that you would have maybe looked at Jesus and categorized him like that at times, because he didn't always step up and say. There were times when he was silent, and Isaiah prophesied that in Isaiah 53. And that's really the only point of this video, is to make sure that we don't blame what's going on in our society on good people. There are, I remember hearing it, when prayer was taken from school, which is really an illogical concept. You can't remove prayer from school. You don't remove prayer from anywhere unless you kill the person. But I understand they meant public prayer. And so they said, well, if we had stood up and we had done this, that, and the other, it may still well have happened. It's the people in society who are ungodly, who are evil. And Jesus is the one who referred to Satan multiple times, John especially, as the ruler of this world. He's what's behind all of this. If you want to say that evil people did it, well, they're puppets of Satan, people who've chosen him as well. You get where I'm coming from. I'm just asking you to fight this negative mentality, to fight this need to blame, and in doing so, casting that blame on good, righteous people. You wouldn't blame Noah in Genesis 6. You wouldn't blame the church in Acts chapter 8. You wouldn't blame Jesus. If Jesus had just done this, that, and the other, things would have been different. So I hope this helps you. I hope you rethink before you say things like that may cast blame in the wrong direction. I want to thank you for being with us today. If you're watching on YouTube and you have not already, you can subscribe by hitting this button below. Please, if this video helped you, like it, share comments with us. If you want to see what we released last time, what YouTube recommends, they're over here. For our podcast listeners, we're grateful that you're here with us. Please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps get the word out about the channel, about the podcast. And the only reason we want to get the word out is so we can help more people. And with that in mind, please consider sharing this with somebody else.